back to Zero Sum Gaming here at the Culture Cache. I'm going to be playing along right now on Missile Command, and if you haven't played it, it's a classic. My idea for this was actually going to be something you've probably already seen with the Angry Video Game Nerd, the Atari in the Dark. He did a video once where he played a whole bunch of games on the Atari in the dark. It's a really cool way to play, and honestly, it's really symbolic of that era, especially with a band period specific, something like Rush playing in the background. But we know YouTube just can't have that, so I decided, what the heck, let's just play Missile Command straight up and see how we do. Anyway, as a proud child of the 80s, card carrying, Missile Command is emblematic of that era. There we go. It was during the Cold War, and while the game will say, no, it's not the Russians or anything like that, it certainly does feel like it. So in Missile Command, you've got to defend these 6 cities down here at the bottom, using your patented missiles yourself to blow them out of the sky before they obliterate some city. This is a pretty hard game to play and talk about it at the same time, actually, and if I'm being totally honest, it's not my best game to begin with. I'm actually kind of surprised I haven't lost a city already. But it's a ton of fun, and it's one of those games that, honestly, in this day and age, you can get it super cheap. So, if you've got an Atari 2600 laying around, and you don't already have Missile Command, that was close. If you don't already have Missile Command, go ahead and get it. You get a little bit of a leeway, if you notice. You can kind of lead your shots. As long as the explosion connects, you're in good shape. There we go. Sorry, it's a whole lot easier to... Alright, well, there go those poor bastards. And there go those poor bastards, too. So, okay, so it's heating up a little, and like I said, I'm not really all that great at Missile Command, but I really enjoy it. So even if I'm not gonna do the best, I still want to just play the game. Here's a cool little trick. You see, I'm just gonna let that one missile fall. Who cares if it lands now? There's not a city there to protect anymore. And it's actually a cool clutch factor built into the game, that the longer it goes, the less of the screen you actually have to protect. So, right now, that's doing me a huge favor, seeing as how I've only got 4 cities left. It's 3 until a second ago, but every 10 grand you get an extra city. And there goes that extra city. You noticed that smart bomb there a second ago. Earlier I said you can lead your targets, and that's true! Except for those. If you're curious, one of the missiles almost hit the cannon in the middle. If that ever happens, it's not the end of the world or anything. Well, in this game. But you do lose 10 of your precious 30 missiles, so you still want to avoid it. I hate these smart bombs. Oh, that's what happens when you don't avoid it. Alright, I'll be lucky to survive another wave or 2 at this rate, but we'll play anyway. We'll see. Maybe I'll get lucky. Avert nuclear disaster. Actually, that's one of the cool things about this game, is how in Missile Command, it's one of those old games where you're never going to be able to beat it. The game will go until you lose. But for a game like this, it actually almost tells more of the story, the fact that you will lose. It's kind of like war games. The only winning move is not to play. The arcade game takes it a step farther. Instead of saying, oh shit. Alright, well, that's going to be the end of this one. Anyway, with the arcade game, instead of a normal game over, it says the end. Really driving the point home that you really screwed up and the world, or at least your world, has come to an end. Okay. That's all you get for it on the Atari side. Not my best game, but respectable enough. I'm going to give it one more go, see if I can't do better on the next one. Alright, so we're back. I wish you could just play straight through with an Atari 2600 game. I know, first world problems. You actually have to get up and press reset to play the game again. For fat asses like me, that takes some effort. Alright, so far so good. Another big difference, actually, between the arcade and the 2600. In the arcade game, you actually have 3 separate missile bases. One on the left, one in the center, and one on the right. And a button for each one to fire. And instead, like on the 2600 here, there's the one in the center, and it has 30 missiles. In the arcade, each separate one has 10. So, if one of the missile bases gets destroyed, that one's inactive for the rest of that wave. Whereas on the 2600, you just lose 10 missiles. And there are pros and cons to that. The 2600, your lone base has to cover the whole screen. There's an extra element of strategy in the arcade. Like if there's a missile that's about to hit on the right, then it makes more sense to fire at it using the base on the right. It doesn't have to travel as far. Though the one in the middle shoots a little bit faster to help alleviate that somewhat. It's getting harder and harder to find games like this out in the arcade these days. Knock on wood, but I've got a pretty good run going here, especially for me. You saw how the first one went. Feeling pretty good about this. Probably not going to happen. Damn it. But one of the most depressing things ever in this game is if you run out of missiles, all you can do is sit and wait as the cities you have left are just razed. It's actually kind of heartbreaking, especially if you were to think about the people that live in there. Think of a game like Majora's Mask, when you talk to the inhabitants of the cities, or the city, Clocktown, and they know they're going to die. And there are some really moving moments in that game as a result of that. Now imagine every city in this game, those people are having those conversations right now. It's kind of a sobering thought. Did you ever think a video game that in all likelihood is older than you would make you think like that? I need to shut my mouth and maybe I won't have so many of these poor bastards dying. Like those guys. Damn it, thought I could have gotten there. Alright, well, I'm still alive at any rate. Spark bombs. There we go. You have to hit them dead on. And it's harder than it sounds, because for so much of the rest of the game, you're used to being able to use the splash damage. There's that clutch factor I was talking about. Just let those harmlessly crash into the ground. Well, that's the end of that. Actually, maybe, if I can hit it's 20,000 points, it'll rebuild a city. And sweet! Another little clutch factor for you there. You don't actually get the game over. Alright, well, now we're screwed. Anyway, you don't get the game over until the end of the wave. So, even if you lose your last city, don't give up. If you can cross over the 10,000 point threshold, it will rebuild a city and you get to keep going. As long as you don't play it like I do there and just lose that city on the very first missile in the next wave. Well, hopefully you learned a thing or two here. You learned about Missile Command and how not to play it. But it's super ultra cheap. You can find it $1 to $5, and you'll definitely want to pick it up. It's certainly worth it. It's also on a ton of compilations out there, so give Missile Command a try.